I remember as I'm sitting in the classroom and I look to my left, I see my friend kind of like making a weird face, and one thing led to another. He ended up making this weird noise that went, ah. And I am not joking, man literally creamed himself. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So this story all takes place back in middle school, and this was my grade 8 year. Now, grade 8 was the year I lost my V card. I'm not gonna lie to you, there's a story on my channel about that, but this story that I'm gonna tell you guys was kind of the introduction to me doing the whole Devil's Tango thing. And it all starts off in my grade 8 year in a classroom learning the education of Devil's Tango. Because I remember back when I was in grade 8, I remember I entered my classroom with me and my friends, and I only had this one friend that was actually a really weird guy, but at the same time, he was like kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. He had 2 moms, so in a way, I guess he was special in his own way. But I remember me and him, we went inside this classroom, we sat down together, and my teacher walked in front of the classroom and said, okay, guys, so today we're actually going to be having a special unit introduced into the classroom, and that is Devil's Tango. Ed, so you guys better be prepared for this class and be ready to learn a lot about your futures. Now, when the teacher said this, I had no idea what she was talking about. But what I will say was that it was very weird her introducing this now that I really think about it. But honestly, I remember a lot of the people in the class could not take this maturely. By that, what do I mean? Well, I had people in the classroom yelling, eggplant, eggplant, we're gonna learn about my eggplant, guys. It's massive. Like just funny jokes like that were just being tossed around the classroom. And then I remember out of nowhere, another teacher ended up walking into the classroom, and this teacher was attractive. Now, I will say I had my fair share of attractive teachers growing up, but this one teacher, holy cow, she was attractive. And I remember when I saw her walk into the classroom, I saw that she was looking beautiful, and she looks at all of us saying, okay, guys, I hope you guys are ready to learn. And I remember, bro, for some reason, a lot of the guys were so excited for this class that like, it was just something they would always talk about. And I remember the first day of Devil's Tango, Ed, the only thing we learned about was how to be mature in the classroom. But obviously, none of us were actually listening to that. But I'm gonna be real here. We were all in grade 8, and none of us could handle that because, well, none of us were mature enough. I don't know how many of you guys are mature, so comment down below, but seriously, no one was really mature. And then I remember the next day was a really, really weird day because all the guys ended up going inside that classroom expecting to learn about cherries because this teacher had a really nice rack. But I remember we ended up learning about the guys' body parts. And let's just say, oh my goodness, it was super gross. Because I am not joking, this teacher ended up bringing up a projector and showing photos of eggplants on the screen. Like, bro, I'm in grade 8. I don't want to sit there looking at other people's eggplants, bro. And like, it was so gross. And then we had to do something with a banana and put like some kind of like protection on it. Dude, I don't even know. It was super weird and super embarrassing. And I am not joking. Like, I did not want to go through that class at all. And that wasn't even the worst part, because what happens the next day to my friend especially was super weird. Because I remember the next day happens, and me and a bunch of the guys, we didn't want to go into our next class because we did not want to learn about, you know, more guy parts. Like, it was just something we did not want to get anywhere near learning about, and it was just super gross. But I remember as we ended up going inside the classroom and we sat down praying that we didn't learn about guy parts, I remember this teacher ended up walking into the classroom, and she looks at all of us saying, okay, guys, so today we're going to be learning about the girls' body system now. And I remember every guy in that classroom had their eyes wide open, staring at this teacher and just staring at her rack and staring at her lips and just looking at her nonstop. And that wasn't even the most crazy part, because I remember this teacher had the projector once again facing the screen, and on the screen, what we ended up seeing was the entire girl system's body parts. Like, we saw cherries to eggplants to roast beef. Like, we saw everything, bro. And me, in my mind, I was thinking like, yo, this is a bit too much for grade 8. But I am not joking. When I looked to my left and I saw my friend staring at the screen and then staring at a really hot teacher that was teaching us, bro, I looked at him and he's just like, Bubba, bro, yeah, you good, man? Bro, I don't know if I can handle this. This is so nice. Dude, are you okay? And one thing led to another. I look forward for just 2 seconds, only 2 seconds. And then I look back to my left once again, and I see him making a weird face with his like face kind of smirking. And he ends up going, ugh. And then one thing led to another. I realized that this guy wet his pants. At least that's what I thought at first, until he ended up telling me, Bubba, bro, I just Devil's creamed myself. You did what? Bro, I am not joking. I ended up basically looking at him as if he was disgusting. Like, bro, we're in the middle of a classroom. Like, how do you just do that to yourself in class? And then afterwards, I remember everyone just kind of starts looking at me because I started kind of like making like a kind of a panic motion with my hands, being like, ew, bro, like, what are you doing? And like, yeah, let's just say the teacher ended up walking up to him with her fat cherries and looks at this student that ended up basically doing the devil's cream. And this teacher ends up putting his hand on his shoulder. And once again, he moans and goes, ugh. And he ended up doing it again in his pants with the teacher right beside him. Bro, I am not joking when I say this. Like, anyone that, you know, takes that class, please, I am not joking. Like, let it all out before you enter in there, because I am not joking. You could be the next person that this happens to. I remember everyone started staring at this kid, and I remember I started staring at him, and he ended up getting up and actually running to the bathroom and calling his mom, saying that he needed a new pair of pants and underwear. And I'm just sitting there thinking, bro, I am so happy that I matured faster than most people, or most other guys, I guess, in that classroom. But at the same time, I did kind of go through an F-boy phase, so I'm not gonna act all high and mighty here. But at the end of the day, what can I say? The teacher was hot, he was seeing what he liked, and he ended up doing it to himself. I remember when me and this guy ended up pulling up to the middle school, out of nowhere, he looks at me and ends up going into his backpack and saying, yo, Bubba, I brought the stuff, bro. What do you mean the stuff? Is what I asked him. And then he ends up pulling out baby oil. This whole time throughout the whole school day, this guy had baby oil. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome to the most sus story I think I'm ever gonna tell on this channel. Now, before anyone decides to cancel me, I just want to say I was not the person that brought anything sus to school, okay? Like, this was not me. This was not my doing, but I was there to experience the most sus thing ever, and you guys will not understand until you guys hear this story. And this story all starts off back in my grade 9 year, and let's just say grade 9 was really, really weird for me, since it was the start of me going into high school, and honestly, me not knowing anyone nor anything about the high school life, I was really oblivious to all things. And since I was oblivious, getting into a friend group was not super easy. I remember I ended up becoming friends with people that I recognized back in middle school, and honestly, a lot of them were still super weird. Since middle school was full of weirdos, one of the people that I actually ended up meeting up with and becoming friends with in my high school, my grade 9 year, was this guy that we're just gonna call Jared. Now, Jared was an ultimate weirdo. No joke, for some reason for him, he always likes living in the past and thinking that his life back when he was in middle school had anything to do with high school. And for all those people that are coming from middle school to high school watching this video, I hate to break it to you, whatever happens in middle school stays in middle school. High school is a totally new, fresh start where you gotta make it up the popularity list or you're gonna be nobody. But anyways, I ended up hanging out with this guy that we're gonna call Jared, and basically me and him, we ended up going around the school and just discovering ways of, well, I guess enjoying high school. But this is where things get a lot worse, because I remember one thing that Jared could never let go of that was in middle school was his middle school girlfriend. Now, I know you guys are probably thinking, wait, this guy was in high school and he's dating someone from middle school? Well, you gotta understand, his girlfriend when we were in grade 8, she was in grade 7. So since me and Jared ended up going to grade 9, which is high school, let's just say his girlfriend got left behind back in middle school going into her grade 8 year. Now, me, I always thought Jared was really weird for this, but let's just say things got a lot weirder hanging out with Jared over time, because I remember every single day he would always end up texting his grade 8 girlfriend that was in middle school, and it was super cringe. And that wasn't even the worst part, because I remember one day Jared ended up walking up to me saying, yo, Bubba, I was just wondering, bro, do you want to, like, you know, stop by the middle school? I want to go see my girlfriend. Nah, I'm good, dude, to be honest. I don't really want to go back to that middle school. Why, Bubba, bro? Like, come on, man. Like, it's just girls, like, and my girlfriend's gonna be there, and like, she has friends for you as well. When he said that, I remember I was ultimately not wanting to go, because I thought going back there just to pull girls was really just disgusting. Now, maybe some of you guys won't think that since it was a 1-year age gap, but you gotta understand, like, she was in a totally different school, and nor was I interested in anyone that much younger than me, or to be honest, anyone of that matter. Like, it was middle school. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember one day after school came around, and basically I was actually about to head home. Sadly though, my parents couldn't pick me up from school, so I ended up looking around the front of the school and I saw Jared, and he was basically waving over at me to come to him. When I went over to him, I remember I ended up seeing him, and I asked him, hey Jared, what you doing today? Oh, yo, Bubba, come bro, you gotta follow me. I'm about to do something crazy. Okay, sure. And at that moment, I remember me and Jared ended up walking up the hill to our old middle school, and as we were walking that direction, I knew in my mind that we were going back there. But obviously, I wasn't willing to turn back around and just go home because, well, we were already this far in. So I remember I ended up going up the hill with Jared, and when we got to our middle school, we ended up going to the middle school field, and that's when we saw her. No, not Jared's girlfriend, another girl. And this girl was like a lot younger, like I think even in grade 6, to the point where I looked at Jared and said, Jared, who's the girl we're meeting up with? Oh, bro, Bubba, she is one of the finest girls, and you would love her, bro. Wait, what? And I remember as we walked up to the field, Jared looks at the girl that was at the field originally that looked super young, by the way, and says to her, yo, so this is my buddy Bubba, and like, bro, he's single right now. I remember I ended up looking at her, and she looks at me and tries to start flirting with me. But obviously for me, I was not interested whatsoever, to the point where I ended up giving her the cold shoulder and basically said, hey. Yeah, literally nothing else. I didn't even say another word after that to her. I just said hi to be polite and then decided to just absolutely ignore her. Every time she asked me a question about me and Jared, or, you know, what are my hobbies, or really anything, I would just not reply, to the point where Jared looked at me and said, bro, are you like nervous to talk to girls? Like, I didn't think you were gay or anything. Nah, it's not that, Jared. It's just like, she's young, dude, and she goes to my old middle school. Like, can't you just leave middle school in the past? At that point, Jared just got annoyed with it, and well, one thing led to another. I just ended up leaving them both alone. But let's just say, since I left, things got a lot worse for Jared, because the next day when I went to school, I remember I ended up seeing Jared sitting in the cafeteria, except he wasn't all excited and happy. He actually was being really sad. So I walked up to him and said, hey, like, is everything okay? What happened? And that's when he started bawling his eyes out saying, Bubba, it's all your fault, bro. This is all your fault. Like, why did you have to leave the other day? What are you talking about? Is what I asked him. And that's when he ended up pulling out his phone and going through the messages between him and his girlfriend that was still in middle school. I remember I ended up seeing a photo of the girl we met up with yesterday and Jared. And basically, she ended up breaking up with Jared since I left them both alone, and she thought he was cheating on her. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't blame the girl for thinking that because, well, I guess Jared still prefers the middle school type. But I'm gonna be honest, since I saw him bawling his eyes out and blaming me for what happened, I ended up telling him, yo, bro, okay, you know what? We can go to the middle school and try to make it up to her. You should think of like a romantic gesture just to get her back. At that moment, I remember he looks over at me and starts shaking his head, yeah. And, well, I guess he already had something planned, but I wasn't sure what. I remember when the bell rang for school to start, I ended up going to my classes, and one thing I realized was that Jared actually ended up skipping school. I didn't know if he went to go make his romantic gesture, but let's just say he ended up leaving the school and not coming back until finally after school came around. And this is where things get really sus, because after school, when the bell rang, I ended up getting a text message on my phone from Jared. He ended up texting me saying, yo, Bubba, meet me in front of the school right now. Okay, is what I texted him back, and I ended up meeting him in front of the school. When I did, I remember I ended up just seeing him with nothing but his backpack, and he looked at me saying, okay, Bubba, I know that romantic gesture that I want to do. Okay, cool, what is it? You'll see, come follow me. At that moment, me and Jared ended up going back up the hill, going to our old middle school, and went to the field. And when we went there, we ended up seeing his middle school girlfriend, or ex-girlfriend at the time, I should say, with another guy. At that moment, this girl got super annoyed and really upset, to the point where he actually ended up going and yelling, saying, babe, please take me back. I love you. I'll show you how much I love you. And I was cringing out so hard, to the point where, no joke, this guy ends up pulling out baby oil from his backpack, and he ended up putting it all over himself in front of the middle school kids. I don't even know what to think at this point. Like, I was really sussed out. Like, no joke, I don't even think Diddy would pour that much baby oil on himself for the middle schoolers. But no joke, at that moment, I was looking around thinking, what should I do? And then out of nowhere, Jared's ex-girlfriend ends up walking up to Jared saying, gee, babe, you know how much I love baby oil. The smell of it makes me so happy. What? Is what I said in my mind, super confused on what in the world was going on. And when one thing led to another, while Jared was drenched in baby oil, they actually ended up making out on the field. Yeah, super disgusting. I gotta say, super weird. And as for all the other middle school guys, and including the guy that I guess this girl was cheating with, I don't really know what the situation was. He ended up standing beside me saying, yo, bro, aren't you guys in high school? What are you guys doing back here? You don't want to know, is what I told him. And well, that was basically how he ended up getting his ex-girlfriend back. Honestly, they ended up breaking up 2 weeks later. All I'm gonna say is that once you're out of middle school, stay away from there. The kids don't want you, especially if you're Diddy with baby oil. All right, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. So today's story takes place back when I was in high school. And honestly, I know what the title looks like, and trust me, I can explain it. You see, back in high school, this was my grade 9 year, and I remember basically in grade 9, everyone everyone was getting hormones. And if you guys don't know what hormones are, basically it's when your body starts to change. A lot of people are late bloomers in high school, so a lot of them start getting in grade 9 to grade 10. But also, I'm not gonna lie, as for me, I got a lot of it throughout grade 8, grade 9, and 10. I don't know, I guess I was somewhat of a late bloomer, but also a bit early. Yo, bro, so like me and some girls are having a sleepover at my place. It's gonna be like a boy and girl kind of like sleepover. It's gonna be pretty cool. I just wanted to know if you would come, because like there's a couple chicks that said that I should invite you. So like, you down? I remember when he told me that, I was actually pretty down for it. I don't know, sleepovers are pretty fun usually, and I remember back when I was a kid, like way younger than grade 9, sleepovers were like the top thing. Like I remember back when I was a kid, me and my cousin, we loved having sleepovers together because we just play video games all night. But I guess in this sense, since I was getting invited from a school friend and in being in high school, who knows what would have happened. And also, not to mention there were going to be girls there. So I remember I told him, oh yeah, man, like I'm so down. And I remember I dabbed him up, and then afterwards he added me to a Snapchat group chat that was basically all the people that were going. There were 10 people going, 5 of them were guys and 5 of them were girls. But I remember when I got added to the group chat, there were 3 different girls that actually were really interested in me and wanted to talk to me. Now at first I was pretty awkward about this, I won't lie, because I didn't really know how the sleepover was going to go. But obviously what I decided to do was that night, I remember I went home to my parents and started telling them that there's a sleepover going on and all this stuff. And obviously I didn't tell them girls were going to be there, because then I knew my dad would be pretty upset. Because let's be real here, when you're in high school, your parents don't really want you to go out and having a crazy adventure unless your parents aren't strict like mine. But basically I remember I told them, hey, mom, dad, I'm gonna be going to a sleepover, and it's just like, you know, me and my friend. Is it cool? I remember my mom asked me, who's gonna be there, what's the address, and tell me what time I should pick you up tomorrow. I remember she said that, and honestly my mom would always come in clutch for me. Like, no jokes, like you always have that one parent you're dependent on to, like, you know, be there for you and always be by your side. And for me, that was my mom. My dad, on the other hand, well, he was more loving and supportive, but he always made sure I was on the right path. And it's funny for me to say that because now I'm a YouTuber talking about doing the devil's tango. But you know, let's keep going with the story. Anyways, I remember after I told my parents about it, they were really calm with it. And I remember they ended up driving me that night to my friend's house. And when I got there, I'm not gonna lie, I only had my pillow, my blanket, and a change of pajamas in my bag, and also a pair of underwear just in case anything happened. Because I won't lie, I had a bladder problem back when I was a kid, so taking a waz on the bed was very common for me. Yes, okay, I was a bedwetter. I don't know how else to explain it to you guys, okay? It was just a bad habit. Because like, you know, like that feeling when you get like a really bad dream, and then like that dream leads you to like wake up and like you go to the bathroom and like you end up waking up not actually being in the bathroom. There's no way I'm the only person that ever had those dreams, okay? You know, that's a story for another time, but that's basically what happened to me usually. So I remember I had an extra pair of underwear, extra change of pajamas, and then I had my blanket and my pillow. And I brought one of my favorite pillows ever. It wasn't just a normal pillow. It was actually, funny enough, a really cool pillow that my grandma got me. It was like this really cool silk, and it felt really, really nice. Anyways, I remember when I got there, I saw everyone there, and basically I saw my friend walk up to me saying, yo, bro, okay, so girls are in that room, guys are in this room, but we're gonna like all hang out in the living room and like watching a movie together. So like, pick your girl, you know what I'm saying? They've been waiting for you, bro. Thanks, I guess, is what I told him. Then afterwards, I remember me and my buddy, we ended up going to the living room, and all the girls were there, and they all saw me. They all started talking to me, and I remember one of the girls ended up saying, hey, like, so when we watch the movie, do you want to like cuddle with me? I mean, I could. And then another girl walks up to me saying, hey, like, Bubba, you know what? You should cuddle with me instead. As she like starts like perking up her cherries. I don't know. It became really awkward. And I remember there was like one of the guys that were there at the sleepover. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I think I've explained this before, but you guys all know that one person that can never pull a girl. Like, just by looking at them, you know they cannot pull women. Yeah, that was that guy. But then I remember I basically just sat down on the couch and just sat there with 2 girls beside me, and we just started watching the movie. We were watching a movie, I think it was like some kind of horror movie. I have no idea. It's basically about this guy who was like a knife, and he just like has like a weird like mask. I have no idea what the movie was, but basically it made no sense. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of horror movies. I don't know if you guys like horror movies, but for me, it's just a no-go. But I remember we were basically watching this movie. I had 2 chicks beside me. We were all eating popcorn, and I'm not gonna lie, it got to the point where these girls were literally feeding me popcorn. I don't know, I felt like a king, and it was pretty awesome. But then, I'm not gonna lie, things got really, really bad. Because the entire time we were watching this movie, on the corner of my eye, I saw this guy just staring me down, being all angry and upset. No, I didn't know what to do. And honestly, I wanted to come in clutch. So I remember I decided to kind of talk him up and be the wingman. Because you already know, one thing you guys have to understand is that the bro code is always valid. You always got to be there for the homies that need a girl. You already know what I mean. Like, for example, if your friend goes into a breakup, the boys are there for you. You know what I mean? So you got to be one of those guys. And I remember I was that guy. So I remember I basically started to, you know, talk him up. So I remember I pointed at him saying, yo, bro, like, you're that smart guy in my class, bro. bro, like, didn't you like finish the homework early and stuff? And right away when he looked at me, he knew what I was trying to get at, but he didn't want to acknowledge it. For some reason, this guy was being so annoying and so upset to the point where he was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Leave me alone. Okay, dude, I was just trying to help, but whatever. Anyways, after that moment, I remember I basically just didn't talk to him, and I remember I was just talking to these girls. And then I want to say like 2 hours in, my friend ended up ordering pizza. We all started eating pizza together. We all ate pizza. We started talking about life in school and started talking like, you know, mad, like bad talk, like talking behind people's backs, because that's like the only thing that's entertaining in high school, really. And then I remember this guy ended up for some reason deciding that we should play a game of truth or dare. Now, when we were playing truth or dare, I remember things got really interesting. And remember, we were in grade 9, so we were like really innocent somewhat. Well, I mean, I wasn't really, and the girls weren't, but for some reason, most of the guys at that party were innocent, I will say. So I remember one of the guys ended up getting truth or dare, and I remember he said, oh, like, I'll do a dare, I guess. And then the girl gave it to him, so basically the girl gave him the dare to take off his shirt. And for some reason, when it was his turn, he decided to tell a girl to take off her shirt when she said dare, and no joke, this girl ended up taking off her shirt. And when this happened, I remember I didn't really care, obviously, but obviously I got a little bricked. And then basically, the guy that basically was like jealous of me the entire time we were there literally got bricked. And it was obvious because he was wearing those like really tight like sweatpants that you like get from like Costco or something. Like he was like really obviously bricked up. Now, I'm not gonna say why I was looking down there, but I'm just saying it got really weird. And then I remember basically after that, my buddy was like, okay, you know what? We should all just go to bed. This is getting weird. So I remember we all ended up going to bed, and we all ended up going into separate rooms. So basically the guys had one room and the girls had the other. Obviously, we wanted to keep things somewhat appropriate, okay? Just in case his parents came home that night, you know? We wanted to make sure we were following the house rules. But then I remember I ended up getting a snap from a girl that added me on Snapchat from the group chat that we were in earlier. She ends up sending me a snap saying, hey, like, you want to like maybe like, you know, make out in the living room? And I remember I said I was down, so I ended up going to the living room, and basically I ended up sitting on the couch and just started making out with her. Obviously, we weren't going to do the devil's tango, but this girl really wanted to. And then I remember like 20 minutes in, for some reason, I saw someone peeking through the door of like the bedroom that I was in before, and it was one of the guys. So I remember I kind of like pulled the girl off me and said, yo, give me 1 sec here. And then I ended up walking towards the room. But as I started walking towards it, I remember seeing this guy just basically run and went to the bathroom that was inside that room. When he went there, I remember I was looking around and I was like trying to figure out who was missing. And then I realized it was the one guy, the one dude that was literally jealous of me the entire night. So I was super weirded out, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go to bed and tell that girl to go to bed. So I remember I went back to the living room, told the girl, yo, just go to bed. Like we can like hang out some other time, but like, let's just go to sleep, bro. I'm kind of tired. And then she said, oh, okay. Just, did you figure out who was watching us? Don't worry about it. It was just a mistake or something, is what I said afterwards. She said, okay. And then she ended up going to bed. And then afterwards, I remember when I came back into the room and I wanted to lay down back in my bed, my pillow wasn't there. For some reason, my nice silk pillow was not there at all. I was super weirded out, and I was like figuring out where it was. And then I realized that the guy was still in the washroom, and he sounded like he was like attacking something. Like it sounded like, I know it's weird to make sound effects, but trust me, it's for the video, okay? It's just so you guys get an idea. And then I remember I knocked on the door saying, yo, bro, by any chance, do you have my pillow in there? And then the man opens the door. He ended up giving me the pillow, and he went straight to bed and laid down. And then I was like, what were you doing with my pillow? I thought you maybe like, you know, punched it or something to get his anger out. And don't get me wrong, I had a really nice puffy pillow. So I remember I ended up getting my pillow, laying in bed, and I remember when I put my head on the pillow, I hear like a squish noise, like a... And when I heard that, I was so weirded out. I'm like, what's going on? So I remember I take my pillow to the bathroom and I turn on the light and I see that there's literally devil's cream on my pillow. He put literally his eggplant in my pillow. Like, what? I remember when he did this, I was disgusted. And I remember went outside the room, turned on the light and said, dude, what did you do to my pillow? All the guys ended up waking up and all the girls ended up waking up because I yelled it pretty loud. And they all came into the room and I'm like, bro, what'd you do? And he's like, well, you had all the girls, so like I had to get something for myself. My pillow? Like, dude, it was so disgusting. And honestly, to this day, I wish it never happens to anyone. But all I'm saying is that don't use another man's pillow. I don't know. After that day, none of us ended up talking to him and we never invited him to another hangout again. But you know, that's just gross, dude. But anyways, guys, that's basically it for today's story. So make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.